Oh, you know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see. We'll see what the definition.
How do you see this and not think that we're in a fucking constitutional crisis? This is insane.
Many of you struggle to understand what motivates how President Trump says and does many things. Well, there are few, if any, who can explain what motivates Donald John Trump more or better than Steve Bannon. You know him as the former White House chief strategist, but he is certainly one of the architects of MAGA, as well as of Trump's 2016 presidential win. You know, he was in limbo for a bit, right? You may remember after calling a meeting that Trump's son and advisors had with Russians as potentially treasonous, but he's too valuable to stay estranged. You know, this guy's got some past. He was in the Navy, he worked at the Pentagon, he worked on Wall Street, he was in film production, of course, in politics, and now podcasting, and he's gaining traction more and more away from the righty fringe. But he certainly still injects the warrior spirit that drives MAGA. And he took his lumps as part of Trump world. He served months in jail for refusing to comply with a subpoena connected to the January 6th committee. He was also pardoned by Trump for federal charges, or from federal charges, involving a charity effort to fund the building of the wall between the Mexican-American border. Then New York State brought charges. Remember, a president can't pardon you from state charges. And Bannon just pleaded guilty as part of a conditional discharge deal. So it seems that the past is behind him. So I want to talk about our present and our potential future, how he can explain what we're seeing in the administration and what his role might be. Because this is the guy behind much of the aggressive messaging. America being at war, the Democrats being the enemy, the media the enemy of the people. Okay, you've heard Trump say that a lot, but Bannon coined it, okay, in terms of this iteration of usage. The administrative state, that there needs to be shock troops to take control of the government institutions. He infamously predicted that all hell would break loose on January 6th. So I want to see where his mind is on what we're all living through together.
Also, don't forget, not only did he say the all hell will break loose on January 6th thing, he also said that Donald Trump was going to come out prematurely before all the votes were counted and declare victory on election night. So two pretty big predictions that did end up becoming true from Steve Bannon.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, just remember that. Just keep that in mind when we hear what Bannon says coming up here.
His role may be going forward. Joining me now, White House chief strategist at one time of the first Trump administration, host of Bannon's.
And I'm gonna watch the live.
All right, word.
All right, peace out, man.
See you.
War Room, Mr. Steve Bannon. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Chris, thanks for having me on News Nation, and I appreciate you.
So the only thing that you're not going to like talking about, we'll talk about first. I'm watching CPAC, and they put up a poll of potential, you know, next generation, right? Post-Trump. You are second on the list after the VP as people getting the nod at CPAC to be president. A lot of people were surprised by this. My first question, you have anything to do with putting your name in that list because you have presidential ambitions?
No. And President Trump, I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028. So I've already endorsed President Trump. A man like this comes along once every century if we're lucky. We've got him now. He's on fire, and I'm a huge supporter. Want to see him again in 2028.
And obviously, anybody who doesn't like what you say but judges it as a function of a lack of intelligence doesn't know anything about you. I don't make that mistake. You're a smart guy. You know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see what the definition.
How do you see this and not think that we're in a fucking constitutional crisis? This is insane.
All right, well, so you're talking about litigating this issue because I don't want people to listen to our interview and say Bannon's cooking up an insurrection. Bannon is cooking up. You know what I mean? I want people to get a straight take on where your head is. What do you suggest?
Chris, as you know, I've had greater long shots than this. When we supported President Trump after the election, I realize you don't believe the election in 2020 was stolen. We do. We fervently believe that. When President Trump went back to Mar-a-Lago on January 20th, 2021, he was the longest of long shots to return to the White House. We said that day in our podcast and doubled down having President Trump's back, that he was coming back not just to win the primary, he would win the White House, and we had to get organized and drive that victory and also start working on all the policies, what's called Project 2025 or the America First Policy Institute, but all those different think tanks that started putting in the policies that you're seeing today in what we call Flood the Zone or Days of Thunder or however you want to describe it. But this is many years in the making. So we've had greater long shots than Trump 2028, and we've got a lot of stuff we're working on there. We're not prepared to talk about it publicly, but in a couple of months, I think we will be.
But you are not suggesting revolution or overthrow or anything that people would condemn.
Chris, we just won one of the biggest sweeping victories. We were in the middle of a 1932 type realignment. If we can continue on and continue to have populist policies, populist nationalist policies, we have African American men coming to our side. We have Hispanics coming to our side. So no, we're huge believers in democracy because we know how to get votes out. We know how to get low propensity, low information voters out to support the president's policies.
Bro! We know how to get low information voters out to support his policy. It's crazy. What the fuck?
The anti we know how to get votes out. We know how to get low. So no, we're huge believers in democracy because we know how to get votes out. We know how to get low propensity, low information voters out to support the president's policies. The anti-democratic forces, I think you're seeing them today in the courts. I mean, they're trying to obstruct a sitting president of the United States from fulfilling his executive mandate. So no, we're the big believers in democracy, and we show it because we won this unbelievable come from behind, not just in 2016, as you know, but in 2024 when virtually everybody ruled Trump out.
By the way, Coy said that there is no clarification on the topic still, so that's good.
There's no question about that. And in 2024, people did not see him making the kind of comeback that he did.
1932 type realignment. Yeah, dude, like, okay. It's really, really, really scary to see one of the key advisors to Donald Trump say that a man like Donald Trump only comes along once in a century, so we need to redefine what term limits look like, because, you know, this is a once-in-a-lifetime type of president. And, you know, we can't talk about it publicly yet because the people aren't ready for it, but in a few months, maybe we'll float it. This is the definition of a oh my God. Like, I don't even know how to react to something like that. It genuinely, like, it's like really, really scary. And any conservative coming out to still support this man after all of this, and to even imply that this holds a candle to something like Burisma, like literally floating, running for a goddamn third term, it's I don't know what to say.
And that is certainly an historical comeback, no question. But I just wanted to make it clear for people so that they can't paint you as, you know, suggesting revolution. Your analogy is to 32 and how FDR extended it. You know, the Constitution probably gets in the way.
I firmly believe in the revolution you're seeing going on now, the revolution of common sense to deconstruct the administrative state. You're seeing that battle and that combat politically and legally in federal courts every second, every day. And your audience, I know they love you, but they ought to start paying attention to also this greater arc of this massive fight that's going on for the direction of this republic.
Listen, we talk about it here all the time. So help me understand this. If you are so simpatico with what's going on, how did you allow Elon Musk to become the right hand?
By the way, even if he does get a third term, still not as bad as January 6th. Just to let you guys know. Just letting you know.
The man of President Trump, and arguably cause him a lot of agita in effectuating DOGE, which is something that should have like 100% acceptance by the American people. Who's against waste, fraud, and abuse? So how did that happen?
Who's against waste, fraud, and abuse is the administrative state and its rogue element, the deep state. Look, Elon and he and I have huge, almost unbridgeable differences on so many things like transhumanism and technology and visas and immigration, all that. But he backed our play. He very early on in, I think, June and July of last year, backed this kind of grassroots effort to go get low propensity voters, low information voters. He put $250 million. It's never been done before. He also was kind of a supporter of this merger of the Bobby Kennedy Make America Healthy Again with MAGA that brought out all those red-pilled moms. And that was a huge effort. He's also, as you know, I'm one of the architects of the deconstruction administrative state. He came up with the DOGE, which are really shock troops into the system. It's a trauma-inducing effort into the administrative state, and all of it's not pretty. But I think it's been pretty effective to date. And I realized today in the courts he had a pretty big reversal, at least on the surface of it, a reversal. But the audience has to understand. We're running $2 trillion deficits. We basically spend $6.5 trillion. We take in about $4.5 trillion. That $2 trillion deficit goes to our debt. It has to be refinanced every year. This is what embedding inflation. We have to cut it. There's two ways you can cut it, either programmatically, which we're going to do through the appropriations process, or you go find waste, fraud, and abuse. It's never terribly pleasant, but his effort is making some progress. I hope it makes some progress, Chris. So what he said it's going to $1 trillion. I don't think we'll get there, but he's making an effort, and I think he's getting some real traction. Of course, like in Silicon Valley, they're breaking things all the time, and that's something that President Trump has given course correction. Now has the department heads very much more involved, the cabinet secretaries, and so I think it's headed in the right direction. Although folks got to understand you're going to have some speed bumps.
I was letting him like explain a little. They're breaking things all the time? What do you mean? Laws? What are they breaking all the time, Bannon?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's causing the speed bumps, frankly. I mean, the way to do what he's doing is send in your shock troops, as you call them, make your list, put the justifications together, present it to Congress, and then let everybody know so Congress knows that we're all aware of what they've been presented with. Instead, you know, this is kind of like the weakness of what you guys put together to me, is that you go off half-cocked, you get the numbers wrong, he attacks Social Security, he blames it for our deficit, which makes no sense. You and I both know that's crazy talk. And that's why I ask you about why Musk is in there. You used to be a little bit more muscular against him. I feel like I'm seeing a Bannon 2.0 kind of gentler vibe.
On these big issues, I've always supported what he's doing on DOGE. Let me go back. This this also gets back to this unitary theory of the executive that we've been, this idea we've been pushing, that President Trump is the chief executive officer of the government. He's commander-in-chief of the armed forces, also chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer. And I realize that causes heads to blow up like when he goes to the Justice Department on Friday. But in Elon Musk's case, the president has, and I think you're going to see coming forward, the ability to impound money. Our theory of the case is that the appropriations bill, which is law, is the ceiling, is the ceiling of what you can spend. And the president can make a unitary decision to not spend that much or to reprogram it. I understand that's going to be
to any. I need to quote that too. That's to all of the fucking super hyper dishonest conservatives who are just saying like, oh yeah, he's just putting a pause on it to find fraud, waste, and abuse. This is literally the Nixon belief that was challenged in court. The whole reason that this fucking law was passed, to say that this is required spending. You can't just say, oh yeah, this is appropriated, but this is the most that we can spend, and I'm just not going to spend it because I don't like it. This is Nixon. This is Nixon. Saying that like congressional budgets are just a suggestion.
Hotly. Our theory of the case is that the appropriations bill has, and I think you're going to see coming forward, the ability to impound money. Our
Jesus.
theory of the case is that the appropriations bill, which is law, is the ceiling, is the ceiling of what you can spend. And the president can make a unitary decision to not spend that much or to reprogram it. I understand that's going to be hotly contested in the courts and probably all of it would go to the Supreme Court.
But so you litigate it. And I'm fine with all of that. Now, here's the first thing I need you to help me understand. I don't buy full disclosure, Steve, I don't know how much you've been following me here at News Nation. I did not like the New York cases against President Trump. I took a lot of shite for that, but I signed up for that.
We follow you closely, Chris, so we know your stand on that.
I did not believe in the impeachments only because I thought you couldn't remove him. To me, as a political operation, if you can't remove the guy, the idea of a matter of principle didn't wash with me. Okay, so that's where I am on it. That said,
well, that's the problem is that so many people are saying like, oh yeah, you can't remove him under the 14th Amendment because he was never, found like impeached for insurrection. And then all of the people just didn't vote on the impeachment for insurrection because they didn't think that it was a valid political process. Now we already saw the political relevancy. If he was impeached for insurrection by Congress, then he wouldn't be on the ballot. He wouldn't be the president.
I don't get this. The judges, these are rogue judges. Steve, you got rid of DACA by going to one district court and starting litigation that wound up at the Supreme Court. Same thing with the individual mandate. Same thing with Biden's tuition relief. You use the same system that they're using right now with the Alien and Enemies Act. Why is this judges going after Trump? What judge wouldn't have put a hold on a removal order that's based on a 1789 or 98 law that was never intended for this? How is that judges going after Trump?
It's totally different, Chris. And by the way, I actually think more of these radical neo-Marxist judges that are working in coordination ought to be impeached and go through the process in the House. I also realized that probably none of them will be removed by the Senate, but I think go through the process. The Chief Justice of the District Court, he's stepping into President Trump's role, go back to unitary theory, as the commander-in-chief. This has already been designated a terrorist group. President Trump made a decision as commander-in-chief to get him out of the country. They've been part of an invasion. He sent him out, and the judge, and people ought to look at what he did. On Saturday, he called together, he held court. Then he's asking where the planes are. He's making command decisions that a military commander would make. He's totally outside his lane. And with Mike Davis.
No, he's not. He's just saying that you didn't have the authority to make these decisions. He's not saying, me as the judge, I say that we need to deploy into Iraq. No, he's saying you made a decision under this untested legal theory, which, by the way, every time that it's been litigated in the Supreme Court, unitary executive theory falls flat on its goddamn face. Reversing something that doesn't comply with the Constitution is not a judge acting as a commander-in-chief. It's stopping a commander-in-chief from acting like a dictator, because he didn't have the constitutional authority, or at the very least, it's under litigation on if he does have the constitutional authority. And putting a 14-day temporary restraining order on a flight is not like a giant overstep of the judicial, like the right is trying to make it out to be right now.
Are leading the effort now to get on the judiciary, get on top of Jordan and the Judiciary Committee to actually start the process of impeaching this judge. I'm a big believer, Chris, that the process, trust the process, that I realize this judge will probably not be removed because of a trial in the Senate. But I think it's very important to have a process here where this judge is actually impeached. And no offense, when President Trump said that, Roberts came out and did nothing but have these judges' backs with, I think, a totally out of line comment he made today. It's going to make this fight even tougher.
But here's the deal. You got to help me reconcile. I get attacking your own government. I get criticizing it. I get it as a fundamental aspect of why the founders architected the First Amendment the way they did, which was redress of government. That was their real concern. You got to be able to go after it so it's not a crown. I don't understand, though, how you square patriotism and the movement with attacking the institutions, you can litigate it. But this judge, he's not taking a command position. You're assuming that this is an invasion because that's one of the trigger mechanisms under that 1798 law. But a gang coming in here, just because they're from Venezuela, doesn't mean they are an arm of the government or that this
By
is...
the way, Delta, I'm sorry for everything I ever said. I think we are in a constitutional crisis after this interview, after the ignoring the court that you can join, pop in. Although I'm only gonna be on until the end of this interview, so but yeah, you can hop in. Yeah, I think well, I'm gonna stand by. I think that last time I talked to you about it, I don't think we were in a constitutional crisis. I think we are now. Yeah, come in. Hi, Delta.
Hello?
Whoa, what the fuck is up with your voice?
What?
What is your voice? Why is your voice like that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's a little bit.
So I just realized they casually unveiled the fucking F-47.
What?
We just, randomly unveiled a 6th generation fighter on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Is that bad or is that good?
I guess it's good. I don't know. It's just very random. I opened Instagram to a picture of a new fighter jet.
All right, word. Yeah, I want to formally apologize. We are, I believe, now in a constitutional crisis. I think we've met that both with Steve Bannon, a close personal advisor, saying that they're working on getting Trump for a third term, saying that they're going to take the Nixon route of just impeaching funds and taking congressional budgets as a suggestion rather than law. Say that
Orders.
Signing an executive order to get rid of the Department of Education. Yeah, we're in constitutional crisis mode, I think.
God damn it.
And literally the borders are, the quote unquote borders are coming out and saying that he doesn't care about what the judges think. That's also a big part of it. So
Yeah, that's insane.
yeah, we're you need to watch this interview with Bannon. It's like disgusting. Cause like everything that you think, everything that you and I think about Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is just too much of a pussy to actually say, Bannon is just coming out and saying for him. Which, by the way, he already did that in 2020. Everything that Bannon came out and said about January 6th, what ended up being true and ended up being what Donald Trump was trying to do. Yeah, it's everything that we think that Donald Trump is. Yeah, everything that we think that Donald Trump is, Steve Bannon is basically saying that he actually indeed is.
I fucking knew it.
Yeah, so I would watch this interview. It's really bad. It's really, 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 really bad.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up much lately.
Yeah, well, it's a bad time. There you go. I screen shared it to you if you want to watch it.
Alright.
I'm not restarting it, so the term limit in the budget thing already passed, but
part of
The
some
what?
type of
where he talks about the third term and where he talks about the congressional budget being a suggestion, that part already passed. But
Oh, I thought you meant that they passed a budget bill that undoes term limits. I'm like, what the fuck?
no. It's just like that part where Steve Bannon says that they're working on getting a third term already happened. So
Oh, okay.
War Act as contemplated by the law. You can argue that. I'm fine with that. But you're assuming it as a matter of fact and that this guy's some kind of traitor. And I don't get how you're a patriot and attacking the institutions gratuitously at the same time.
We're not attacking institutions gratuitously. By the way, the institutions of this country, and I think this is the reason the Democrats lost, the American people understand that our institutions have to be either purged or they have to be reformed. Everything from the Justice Department.
I'm not attacking the institutions, but I think everyone realizes that the institutions need to be purged. What does attacking the institutions even mean then? If that doesn't constitute an attack on the institutions, what?
Yeah.
What is? Okay.
to the FBI, to the intelligence community, to the Pentagon, across the board. And that's what President Trump's mandate is. That's what he's doing.
You don't think that's because you guys tell them that these
this judge is
institutions
stepping-
stink all the time?
Chris, this judge is stepping in the middle of President Trump's constitutional duty as commander-in-chief. President Trump has made a decision. They're a terrorist group. He's made a decision. They're going to be expelled from the United States. They were on planes to a country that agreed to take them with a prison
But it's
system.
not a
and he's
military.
saying
It's
they're
not a
redirecting
military
it.
operation.
Correct.
It's not a military operation. It was ICE.
Yeah, I don't know why
was ICE.
people keep trying to make this out to be a military operation. A deportation is not a military operation.
Yeah, well, like
I don't. It's just not. I don't even think there's any like theoretical wiggle room to defend that. It's just not a military operation at all. Is it just because it was a U.S. aircraft?
probably.
ICE, you would basically be running into posse comitatus if you did it the way you are, which is, you wanted to militarize
It was
a law and order
tantamount.
effort.
It was tantamount. ICE did it. But it was tantamount to a military operation to get him out of the country. It was dangerous for this
No,
judge to
listen,
insert himself.
Steve,
And
now
look
it
at
was
the
tantamount
way
to
I'm
he's
not
a
against
military
getting rid of the gangbangers.
operation.
That's not my point. I keep getting
You're
beaten over the head. Do
it
want
is-
gangbangers in the
Chris,
country.
you guys
That's
are
not my
unfortunately
point. It's not my position. It's not my position. You can do it a different way. You can do it a different way
Chris,
with due process. This is not a military situation. You need a declaration of war underneath that law to trigger its removal mechanism. That's why you're
That's not
playing at
true.
this being militaristic, but it isn't.
President Trump's belief as commander-in-chief, he's done what he's needed to do in the proclamation to actually expel these invaders that are dangerous criminals. And now the people defending them are in a horrible position of having to argue their due process rights and everything else. Let them argue and let the American people decide. But President Trump is not
I'm
going
fine
to
with
take these.
That's gross. Now you're in the horrible position of arguing for due process.
That's insane. Imagine a world where you have to argue for fucking due process.
I know. It's every day you need to be like, for whatever new amendment they want to attack, you want to be like, do we really want to bar insurrectionists from running? Do we really want freedom of speech? Like, do we really want anybody to say anything? Do we really want due process for criminals? The next
The
next
We
thing is
should
going to
be
be like, do
bringing
you
up-
really want Congress? Wouldn't it just be easier to elect one person? It's like,
We really need to start attacking gun rights. I'm telling you, they want to attack the Constitution. Just remind them where they get the right to have a gun.
no, we need the Second Amendment really bad right now.
That's how you. No. I'm saying attack MAGA when you're debating and shit. And like on the national stage with like news, they have to start bringing up the Second Amendment. That's the only thing that'll get through these guys' heads.
I have been coming across the Second Amendment, but it's or like arguments about the Second Amendment. The problem is that conservatives just think that the Second Amendment is the only wholly untouchable part of the Constitution. That's the only thing that you're not allowed to touch.
Yeah, I would just start bringing it up. I might.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to fuck with the Constitution? All right, fuck you. I'm taking away your right to a gun.
Yeah.
These people back, and he's not going to allow a judge. He's not going to allow a judge to step in between him and these decisions that are tantamount to military decisions.
If they're
He's not going to let a judge step between him and something that is tantamount to a military decision. That is not a military decision. That the judge has every right to interfere with.
Yeah, he can't even enact Alien Enemies Act, I'm pretty sure.
Well, because from what I
It's
heard, or at least what's alleged in the lawsuit, is that we either need to have a declaration of war against Venezuela, which we obviously don't have, or we need to prove that the Tren de Agua, or whatever the terrorist group is called, or like the people in the nation are working on behalf of the Venezuelan government as like a predatory incursion. You can't just declare something is an incursion and then just get rid of them. You have to have some sort of tie to the Venezuelan government in order to declare it as a predatory incursion. That's what I heard, or read. Just saying something is a predatory incursion doesn't give you, like, I could claim that, my girlfriend coming into my house is a predatory incursion and then deport her from the state, but like that doesn't, she's not. Yeah.
military decisions, it would be different, though those can be litigated also, and they have been. I do not mean to condescend to you at all. I know you know the history.
No,
I know
you should condescend to Steve Bannon, because he's either being a fucking, I know he's not stupid. I know for a fact Steve Bannon's not stupid. He's being an evil piece of shit, and he's not bringing up the precedents for a reason. You need to talk down to him. You need to bring him up, because you either need to show him that he is such a fucking idiot that that he doesn't know the case law, or make him admit that he knows the case law and that he's just a lying, evil piece of human filth. All right, like that's what we need to That's what we need to do. We either need to mask off them for being stupid or mask off them for being evil. But the way to do that, both of those, is to talk down to them.
A lot of the case law on this stuff. I've listened to your podcasts on it and your speeches. So I get that, I'm not talking down to you. Apology if you take it that way. What I'm saying is I'm fine with litigating it, like with those other cases that I instructed. Work the system. The way it comes out is the way it comes out. I feel like there's a new wrinkle to MAGA, which is anything that doesn't go our way is corrupt. And anybody who doesn't agree with us is an enemy.
True.
And that sounds like some real BS to me, Steve.
Chris, I don't think that's the fact at all. I think President Trump's been very straightforward. People have been very upfront of what we're going to do here to basically make sure that the criminal, and particularly the gang criminal elements, that's where the designated terrorist organizations, this has been worked on for a while. So, and we're not accusing people who don't agree with this of being enemies. There are domestic enemies.
Yes, you are. You're literally calling for the impeachment of the judge. What do you mean you're not calling people who disagree with this enemies? You're literally calling for a legal impeachment of the judge who's ruling against you.
Elements of the deep state that are working against the United States, and I think those are going
And you just framed Cuomo as defending a terrorist organization. What does that mean? What does that make somebody?
be rooted out in the very near term. And so, and President Trump is very focused on this. You can see every day, President Trump right now is all gas and no brake. And so I think people should anticipate there's even going to be much more of this. And the only way the Democrats can fight us, because they have no political power. As you know, you've said this many times, their polling's the worst it's ever been. No leader has really emerged. They're trying some sort of resistance in the streets, not working. They're using lawfare again, which you were so against. They're using lawfare again in the federal courts because their strategy is to delay is to deny. To delay.
Yeah, sorry. The strategy isn't to say that everybody who disagrees with me is corrupt. The strategy is to say everybody that disagrees with me is lawfare. Every time that a court ruling comes back against me where a jury of my peers or a judge that ends up getting appealed up to the Supreme Court disagrees with me, that's lawfare. And that the Supreme Court that was mostly appointed by Donald Trump is actually just wildly biased against Donald Trump, even though they gave him political immunity.
I'm seeing some social media influencers call it a inside insurrection.
It's a word that I'm not gonna say because I have face cam on, but it's one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my life. How is it? All right, Delta, tell me, answer me this question. How is it that an insurrection somehow needs to have weapons and have millions of angry protesters who kill fucking Congress people in order for it to constitute an insurrection? But now, when a judge rules against the president under full legal authority, that's an insurrection.
Yeah. I don't know. Fucking change the definition, bro.
Literally. There's nothing to hold MAGA accountable right now.
Is to deny. And so what they're going to try to do is to fight a rearguard action and drag all this out. And if you read the situation in San Francisco, that judge's order, when you go through it and the way he was treating the government lawyers, it's like a 2-year process. And that's what they hope to instill. And I think you'll see President Trump even double and triple down more on this. We have a constitutional crisis, and we're going to have a confrontation with these courts.
See, I don't.
It's so super succinct, man. We have a constitutional crisis, and we're going to try and have a conflict with these courts. That's very, very succinct. Very well put. I agree.
See the constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the cell that I don't understand why you need to go there in order to say we want change. And if he doesn't like the ruling, appeal it. I mean, that's how the system works. That's how you guys have done it time in memoriam. All of a sudden, the system is a part of the suspicion, and I don't get it.
Here's Chris. You have a judge inserting himself between the President of the United States and his role.
No, I get your argument. I get your argument. I just don't accept it, and we'll see how it plays out in litigation. But look,
I will tell your audience one thing.
I'm not demonizing you for making the case. I'm just saying I don't agree with it.
And Cuomo is just doing so much fucking coddling. He's like, all right, listen, I know you're smart. I know you know the case law. I'm not going to talk down to you. And, I'm disagreeing, but I'm not going to, fight you. And I don't think what you're doing is bad. And, I appreciate you going through the process. And, maybe just lay off the institutions a little. But if you really don't want to, then that's fine. Oh, my God.
But I would tell your audience, understand that in the federal courts right now, this is the center of gravity of this battle. And all these different federal courts.
We literally, right now, we have Bannon coming in and saying, we are going to push Trump for a third term. Every court who rules against me is just acting within lawfare. We think that the president should be able to take the congressionally passed budget as a suggestion rather than law, and we think that the president can just deport whoever he wants to because he labeled it as a predatory incursion, and the judges have no say over the executive. Cuomo reacts to that with, and listen, I think you have every right to bring that up in court. No, my thing came off the stand. I mean, you do have every right to bring that up in court, but don't act like it's not one of the fucking craziest things you ever heard in your life from a presidential advisor.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute real quick
Oh my
because I'm holding
God.
this thing like Freddie Mercury.
Okay. Thank God, bro. I just realized why they named it the F-47.
Why?
Because
Oh.
Donald Trump is the 47th president.
Real.
Oh my fuck.
There you go.
I hate this country so much. I hate it so much.
It's awesome. I love this country so much right now.
And it's going to be
I
hotly
I
contested.
hope the next president.
I agree, but that's the way it's supposed to work. That's how we flex democracy. That's what makes us different in a good way. Let me ask you about one thing. Help me understand this. Ukraine and Russia, to me, it feels like when Trump came back into office, the script flipped. Right? Everybody was yellow and blue all day long. When I got fired and I was sitting home watching the Ukraine war, I wound up going over there on my own dime to cover it and help Sean Penn do his documentary on the front. And everybody saw them as like some kind of extension of who America was when it fought against the English. Now, Trump is back. He never liked Zelensky because of that phone call, right? That led to the second impeachment or helped the second impeachment along, which again, I wasn't in favor of because I knew they wouldn't remove him. But again, and now it's like Russia, they're pretty good. And now it seems like Russia is orchestrating the peace terms. Now, we're not going to agree to peace, but yeah, let's stop hitting the energy centers, which by all accounts, Putin is still doing, even while they're negotiating, not doing it anymore. Do you believe this is the right move for America to be as accommodative of someone that you're part?
All right, let's predict the talking points. He's gonna say, we need the deaths to stop. We need world peace. The U.S. has no place over there, and we're wasting money. And he's gonna bring
And
up
that
the
it was
budget.
NATO's fault.
Do you think he'll do the pro-Russian talking points, or do you think he'll just do the American isolationism talking points?
I think he'll do mostly American isolationism plus NATO.
Yeah, just one pot shot at NATO.
Yeah, just one.
Okay. Okay. We'll see.
Party has never trusted until now. Putin.
Chris, let's go back in time. If you go to the war room, and particularly the right, the hard right of the MAGA movement, we were adamantly opposed to this from day one. We would quote Professor Mersheimer at University of Chicago on the eve of the war that the West was going to lead the Ukrainian people down the primrose path to their destruction. What we've argued on the war room from day one is that this is ridiculous. And now you have about Ian Brummer, I think, calculates between 450 and 500,000 Ukrainians dead or wounded. The country looks like Dresden in 1945. There's 800 to 900,000 dead or wounded Russian troops. I mean, the casualty levels here are bigger than the first, from the invasion of Poland in 1939 to Operation Barbarossa in June of 1941, the beginning of World War II. This war now dwarfs it. I mean, this is combat at its most primitive. We've been opposed to this from day one. We have been a driving that we need to have a Russian rapprochement. We need to break Russia off from China, and the Chinese Communist Party is working together in that alliance they have in the Eurasian landmass. I think the call today reinforced the fact that President Trump and Putin are talking at a very high level, some sort of economic relationship, maybe some sort of potential strategic relationship that includes the Middle East and maybe even taking out the situation with the Persian nuclear program. So, no, we've opposed this from day one. That's why we've been a big advocate that President Trump and his team like Steve Witkoff should focus on the overall Russian strategic deal or strategic relationship and let Marco Rubio and others work on the Ukraine piece as a subset of this, because I think it is a subset. And look, the Russians...
Well, that's not what I was expecting. Literally saying like,
Me neither.
oh yeah, well, fuck Ukraine. We need like a strategic relationship with Russia. So I mean, like, yeah, if that's what it takes, fuck Ukraine. We'll give it Rubio.
Yeah.
People ask me, can you trust Putin? I said, did Winston Churchill trust Joseph Stalin? Of course they don't, right?
No.
The Stalin and Churchill, FDR never really trusted him. They didn't trust him, but they were great allies that lost, 35 to 50 million.
That's such a bad hypothetical. We didn't trust Stalin, but we were at war with him. Stalin had incentives outside of the U.S. deal to fight. Russia has no incentive to uphold the ceasefire in Ukraine. They have absolutely no incentive other than the U.S. asked them to. It's completely disanalogous.
People in World War II in combat are starving. Right. You don't trust the KGB, but you're going to have to work with them, particularly if you want to break the back of the Chinese Communist Party. I think President Trump's geostrategic vision here is going to be the most significant since the end of World War II, and I think they're going to hammer this out. It's going to take months, but I think today's a pretty good start.
Also, the fact that anybody on the right is talking about like, oh yeah, we just don't have any, place in this war. We're wasting so much money. The U.S. just has to worry about its own. And then Steve Bannon, an advisor to Trump, is saying like, no, listen, we just have to imperialize more. Imagine if like the U.S. and Russia got hold of Africa. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So, Steve, I know that you're relevant in not just working it in the digital media, but as part of that inner sanctum, you have an open invitation to come here as we go through the machinations of this movement and we see what's happening. When I need explanation from that side, we have an open door policy here. You're invited to come in and make the case whenever you want.
Chris, we're always glad to come back. We watch News Nation, and you guys got something very special there. So keep grinding like you guys always do, and I feel honored to be asked back.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Terrible country-threatening, constitutional crisis-causing thing, and Cuomo did not give a single lick of useful pushback. Other than, like, asking him clarifying questions, which, I mean, was kind of helpful. He was like, okay, so, all right, so you want to run for the third term, you want to, like, throw the Constitution, crumple it up and throw it in the trash. Are you going to put it in the trash in here, or are you going to throw it out in the dumpster out back? That was about the level of pushback we got from Cuomo there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most amount of pushback any MAGA has ever given him.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see that Frenchman get deported because he didn't like Donald Trump?
Yes, but there's a little more nuance there. I'm not quite ready to say that it was crazy because like some like non-affiliated sources said that it could be terroristic. So, we'll see.